Hello, Year 7. This is our next lesson in the Travel and Explorers unit. And this lesson, in the series of lessons, you're going to be completing a descriptive writing task. Now, this work is going to take you to the end of next week. So the work is due in at 3:30 a week on Friday. And this is all about you practicing your descriptive writing skills. So the first little task I want you to do is just have a look at this little picture. This is of the Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. And I'd just like you to write a short description on a piece of paper or on your computer or in your exercise books, just to kind of think about how you would describe this scene. And if you want to have a look at any other pictures, then you can just use Google to Google pictures of the Victoria Falls, which is in Zimbabwe, which is a very beautiful place. So if you just pause the video now and complete that task. So this just gives you an overview of what we're learning about in this next part of the unit. So I want you to know and understand and be able to use features of descriptive writing. And then I want you to then complete a piece of descriptive writing, which you're going to hand in via assignments on Teams, based on a place that you have not visited. And I'm going to give you some ideas about that in just a moment. So these are the 4 different things that we're going to do. So we're going to start off by looking at some of the features of descriptive writing. You're then going to research a particular place that you're going to write about. And then you're going to then write up your description. And this video will guide you through exactly what I want you to do for this particular piece of work. So the next thing that I want you to do is to look at some examples of descriptive writing. So I want you to read 2 different extracts which you can download from assignments and on our room on Teams. The first one is a description of Victoria Falls, which we looked at right at the start of this online lesson, which is from Gabby Roslin, who is a television presenter. Her father was born in Zimbabwe and she often visited Victoria Falls when she was younger. And then the other description I want you to read is by David Livingstone, who was a 19th century explorer. And he was an explorer, he was a missionary, so we went over there and tried to spread Christianity, which was quite a common thing for people to do in the 19th century. And he was the first European person to ever set eyes on the Victoria Falls, and he was amazed by how beautiful it was. So you can have a look at their descriptions, and that can be used really as some examples for you of descriptive writing. So just pause this video now and then read those 2 different extracts and have a look at some of the features of descriptive writing in them. So these are some of the features that you want to try and cover when you are looking at descriptive writing. When you come to actually write your piece of descriptive writing, you want to go back to this part of the video, or if you're using a PowerPoint, have a look at slide 4 and think about the features of great descriptive writing. So you want to make it really, really interesting. So you want to try and find some really interesting features about the place that you visited. Is there some local custom, for example? What's the food like, for example? What's the weather like? Just find something really interesting to write about. Try and use humour within your writing as well. So if there's any funny stories that you could maybe consider, then write those down. Make it personal. So I would recommend you writing your description in the first person, which means I. Really put your personality in there. So talk about why you enjoyed visiting this place. Use personal experiences and what we call an anecdote, which is when you tell a story from your own experience. Can you use something called bathos, which is where we exaggerate something for comic effect? So really exaggerate how beautiful something is, make the writing a little bit silly, for example. That's what we mean by bathos. And can you use a noun phrase? Okay, so a noun phrase is an adjective which is in front of a noun. So in the example, like a beautiful beach, beach is the noun, and then we've got the adjective beautiful. And I'm trying to encourage you to use a range of different vocabulary as well within your work. So try and make sure you can use things like online thesauruses, for example, to try and look for a range of different vocabulary. So try and use some really, really good words in your descriptions. Try and make it vivid. So try and enable the reader to really imagine what it would have been like to be in that place. Make it lively, make it funny. It can be what we call colloquial, which means it's written in much more of what we call a chatty style, a conversational style. The writing style itself is a little bit less formal. So you might use words like tacky or a roaring trade. Use metaphors and similes. Now we've covered metaphors and similes a lot. So a metaphor is where you say something is something else, like a man mountain, a simile, things like as brave as a lion or as cold as ice. But you can think of some really, really good examples of metaphors and similes for your descriptive writing. Use facts about the place being described. List adjectives in threes, so the rule of three. We looked at that in the Holidays from Hell persuasive writing task. And if you're comfortable with it, use a bit of sarcasm to add impact. So you might talk about some of the places that you visited were not particularly nice, and you could use a little bit of sarcasm. You know, talk about, oh, it's the holiday of my dreams, in that sort of sarcastic tone, which is quite an effective thing to do in descriptive writing. So there's some of the features. So go back and have a look at those and try and get as many of those into your work as you possibly can. The other thing which you want to think about when you're writing descriptively is when we go to a place, we use all of our senses. So I want you to really cover that when you are doing your writing. So think about, what are you feeling about a particular place? What are your thoughts going through your mind? What does the place smell like? So if you're on a sandy beach, what does it smell like? For example, if you're at the top of a cold mountain, what does it smell like? What kind of things can you see? What can you touch, for example? So what do things feel like? So if you're in a desert and you're touching a cactus, for example, what do things taste like? So you could talk about, you know, the food that you can see, but it's really important to get all of those senses going through as well. What kind of things can you hear, for example? So you want to write about all of the different senses within your work. So that's a really important feature of descriptive writing. We've talked about that quite a lot in our lessons this year. So this is going to be your task. You're going to complete a descriptive piece of descriptive writing. It's a place of your choice, anywhere in the world, but must not be a place you've already visited. So I don't want you just to describe, you know, Whitby on a Saturday afternoon eating fish and chips. I want you to really challenge yourself to describe somewhere that you've never visited. So it might be that you've got a dream that you want to go somewhere. So you've always dreamed of going to, I don't know, New York, for example. So you might want to describe that. So you can choose anywhere in the world, but I've given you some ideas as well to help you. So you're going to start off by researching this place that you're going to describe. You're going to plan out your ideas. You're going to draft up your piece of descriptive writing, and then I want you to check it, and I want you to actually then do a final draft. So it may well be that you're going to use a computer to write this out if you've got access to a computer all the time, so that you can actually fine-tune your work and redraft it. That's a really, really important thing to do to be a good writer, to redraft things. You know, people that write books, for example, have editors that will actually help them to redraft their books and their ideas. So that's a really important thing to do. So these are some countries that you might want to choose, but you can choose your own country if you want to, and a place within those countries. But these are just some suggestions that I've given you if you want some ideas. And I've just got some pictures here of some different places from these countries just to kind of inspire you. Now, you don't have to use these, but you can do if you want to. So this is in Bolivia, and this is the salt flats, and they are quite spectacular. So that would be an amazing scene to use in your descriptive writing if you wanted to. Look how beautiful and amazing that is. So you could research that in a little bit more detail. This is Patagonia in Argentina, in the southern tip of Argentina. Very, very beautiful indeed. So you can imagine that you were visiting that place and, again, describe it. So you'll need to do some research around it. It could be that you go to Japan and go somewhere like Mount Fuji, for example. It might be that you decide to visit South Africa and go to Cape Town, and this in the background there is Table Mountain. Whichever place you go to, you need to research it well. So one of the first things that you're going to do, okay, is to actually carry out some research on your different place that you've chosen. So you'll see in the teams the little pro forma there for you to do some research on a particular country, and that's the first thing that you're going to do. Once you've carried out that research and found out about the place in detail and what the different places are and what it looks like, and you know what the local food is and the customs and the tourist attractions, so you can really go into detail, you're then going to use your planning sheet to help you plan out ideas. So there's lots of ideas that you can put in there, including a focus on the different senses. So that's really important for you to do. And then once you've planned out ideas using your planning sheet and you thought about what might go in each paragraph, in each of the paragraphs, you're then going to draft out your answer. Now, when you draft out your ideas, you need to have a good structure. Now, some of you need to work a little bit more on paragraphs. So if you like, these bullet points could be a paragraph, but certainly in the second section here, you may well want more than one paragraph. And I'll just give you some ideas on paragraphs in just a moment. So you're going to start off your piece of descriptive writing by introducing your country and the place you're traveling to. Maybe give it a bit of background information. It could be about how many people live in that country, what particular place, you go into a city, how many people live in the city, a little bit of history about the place. And then you're going to describe what the place is like. So you might want to break that up into different paragraphs, like what the food is like, what different places you went to, what about the scenery. You might want to tell a story about something that happened. It might be something amusing. You could even bring in some ideas from your holidays from hell there if you wanted to. And then you're going to conclude your writing and you're going to finish off about what that place was like and your thoughts about that particular place. Now, just pause this to just remind yourself about when we should start paragraphs. So usually we start a new paragraph when there's a change of topic, a change of time, a change of speaker, or a change of person and place. So if you were writing about food, for example, and then you went on to write about tourist destinations, then when you go onto the tourist destinations, you would write in obviously more in a new paragraph, so that you are making sure that you've got a clear new section to your work. I want you to really carefully check your work. So check that your spellings are accurate. Have you used a range of punctuation in your work? So, you know, your commas and full stops and capital letters used correctly. Have you used complex vocabulary? So if you're using some of the same words all the time, like nice or beautiful, can you change them to other words that would mean similar, you know, the synonyms? That would be really, really useful to do as well. Have you used paragraphs correctly? And is your description interesting? And would it make somebody want to visit that place? When you've done that, you're going to write up your final piece of work. You can hand it in. You've completed the task then. You've worked really, really hard. You've done a great piece of work. As usual, if you're not sure what to do, if you've got any questions, then do let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got. And also you can always send me any of the drafts that you've done just through the chat on Teams, and I can have a little look at that before you hand your final piece of work into the assignments folder. So thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.